A lot's changed and...
Go.
The other side of my ranch and back.
Oh, big deal. How far is that?
About 500 miles.
Oh.
Volkswagen does it again. Hey, Stay Puft, do it again.
Leave it to Stay Puft to come up with the practical dryer sheet. See? Reusable.
Hey, Stay Puft, do it again.
It's like getting twice the sheets in every box.
Hey, Stay Puft, do it again.
New Stay Puft sheets are made a special way, so the second load comes out soft and fresh and without static cling like the first. And they're perforated, so you only use what you need.
Hey, Stay Puft, you've done it again.
There are many medications for acid indigestion or heartburn relief. Which one is right for you? For years, Maalox has been recommended most by doctors. Now, the antacid ingredients in here, plus an extra ingredient, are in Maalox Plus tablets. Really pleasant tasting and effective. And Maalox Plus tablets also come in this handy pocket pack that keeps them fresh and sanitary. Maalox Plus for acid indigestion or heartburn relief. But don't just take my word for it. Try Maalox Plus tablets. You'll find you can't do better.
That's it for this Monday morning. Tomorrow morning, the morning after the Academy Awards tonight, Jim Brown live from Hollywood with the Oscar winners. We hope you'll join us then. Also, an interview with Joan Kennedy in part 2 of Rosanna, Rosanna Dana. This is Today on NBC.
On a 1-hour special, meet Fred Sanford's new collection of dummies.
Even with your mouth shut, your face is screaming, ugly!
Sanford, Tuesday at 8, 7 Central and Mountain. Victor Borga, Loretta Swit, Ice Queen, Peggy Fleming, the Two Ronnies, Ken Berry, and more. The Big Show, Tuesday at 9, 8 Central and Mountain, right after Sanford.
When prime ribs are roasted just right, you can practically taste them with your eyes. And with garden vegetables, simmered till they just turn tender, you can almost see how good they're going to taste. It's the same with Home Pride Buttertop bread. It looks and tastes like real bread should, because we split the top, add butter, and let it bake right in. Home Pride Buttertop, white and wheat. You can practically taste it with your eyes.
Heavy everyday wear can create abrasive, obstructed soil in your fine carpets. That's why smart homeowners and businessmen rely on Stoll Steam Carpet Cleaning. Stoll Steam goes deep, pushes obstructed soil, stains, grease, residue, and bacteria up and out like no other professional or home cleaning process can. Stoll's Scotchgard Carpet Protector keeps soil out, too. And with Stoll's process, all the noise and equipment stays outside. Call Stoll now for a free estimate. Protect your carpet investment. Call right now.
To find out how television influences our lives, almost 20 million families read TV Guide magazine. It's on sale now, everywhere.
Tic-Tac-Doe tonight at 7:30 on 13 Strong.
Meet Nancy Friday. You'll remember Nancy Friday is the person who's responsible for My Secret Garden, and then you wrote My Mother, Myself. You're here in the company of Dr. Sergei Sanger, a psychiatrist, and we're here to talk about men. What more appropriate person to have on our show?
Thanks a lot.
Than a man. Let's chat here first, Ms. Friday, about your book, Men in Love. Are you saying men need love more than women do?
That's my feeling, Phil. That's the feeling I came away with after finishing Men in Love. I grew up, I think, like most women, thinking we girls, we women need men far more than they need us. In a pinch, if they're unhappy, they can always get in their car, go west, get on a ship, go to Singapore, go out in the bar and find another woman. My feeling was that women are tremendously dependent upon men and we need them much more than they need us. I've changed my mind. I really now think that emotionally, women can make it in this world much easier than a man can, that they need us desperately. And I think right now in 1980, it's very important for women to understand that.
Now, let me make sure. When you say love, if I'm understanding you, emotionally speaking, men need to be paired with a woman, assuming heterosexuality.
Yeah.
More than is true in the reverse.
Well, statistics, sociological studies have shown that men on their own really don't make it. Tables of statistics of alcoholics, depressed people, suicide. Men don't make it on their own. I think it isn't just sex. You know, women seem to think he only wants her for sex. Sex is all he's out for. That's all they're out for. The fact is, you know, if it's just sex that a man wants, he can have sex with a prostitute. or another man, or by himself and stay home if he wants to. The fact is, he'll pay the price that women put on love and sex because he needs a woman so badly.
He is so interested in sex that he'll accommodate a lot of other...
He's so interested in love. He's so interested and so needy of women. I had a man write to me recently when I finished the book, Men in Love, and he said, I wish you'd rewrite it and add an extra chapter called Risks Men Will Take for Women. He said, I've been in the military and been abroad for 20, 25 years. I've known men to crawl through minefields, to swim through shark-infested waters, to be in the company of a woman. He said, do you know women who'll make those kind of risks for a man?
A few.
I know some guys who'd like to have the list if there is some. Dr. Sergei Sanger is a psychiatrist. You bring your own Harvard-educated experience to this whole issue of men and women, and...
I see you can tell.
Yeah. What blanks would you like to fill in here, based upon our dialogue?
Well, I'm delighted to hear about this book and to have read it, because I think it's very important that the boys, the little boys especially, not be treated any differently than little girls by their mothers. We see so often that there comes a point early on and then again in adolescence when little boys are sort of pushed away because the mothers are afraid to hug them, to kiss them. They'll make them effeminate. They'll be too weak and soft. And in my work with little kids, I see that little boys just need it just as much. They love it. And their whole personality is formed in the sense in the appreciation and the back and forth that they see in the eyes, the experience of their mother. So I'm very pleased that Nancy, at the end of the developmental cycle, sees boys, young men, and older men, who are also saying the same thing. They thrive, they bask in this attention, this love.
Sergei Sanger is one of the doctors I worked with on my mother myself so closely. And as he well knows in his profession, so much of the emphasis, the thinking nowadays, has gone into these very early years in children's lives, girls and boys, and how important those years are. I think one of the good things that's going to come out of the troubles we're having now in the 1980s with so many mothers working, it's problematic now, but I feel that in time, what it's going to do is bring the men into the early mothering, as it were, of the children. Boy, I tell you, to put it bluntly, to have a daughter toilet trained by her father, wow, that would be terrific.
Why? Why would that be why is that important, outside of the fact that it cuts down on the laundry? What's the...
Women grow up with this feeling that there is a part of their bodies that is totally distasteful and repugnant to a man. It is a projection, I feel, of their own feelings about that part of their body onto the man.
Inherited as these feelings were from whom?
From their mothers. They've taken them in from their mothers. Whereas if you get a man and a woman raising a child, girls and boys, for one thing, you will also end up with daughters in this culture, with girls who perhaps don't look to men to make them sexual, who will perhaps find that their sexuality lies within themselves. I feel so many marriages go bad, fall flat, because the woman has this dream that when she marries, he is going to do this magic thing to her. He is going to make her sexual. Nobody makes you sexual. You make yourself sexual. It comes from within you.
And conversely, the boys grow up feeling that to finally leave the nest, as I understand, this is a very simplistic interpretation of what you're saying in the book, boys, one of the reasons boys are excited by that first erotic experience is this apparently subconscious feeling that it will be a relationship with a woman that is joyful, mutually satisfying, fun.
He'd like to think so, you know, Phil, but boys grow up experiencing women as the great no-sayers for sex.
Yes, okay, now...
Well, they're the great no-sayers in every way. This is why the toilet training of both boys and girls by the father would take some of the pressure off the mothers, who have all the responsibility for all the habit training, all the nutrition, all the laundry, all the housekeeping chores of surrounding a child, and that makes the mother very powerful, and she stands behind every woman that the man will later date and marry, that lest he suddenly become a little noticing her, that she says, oh, why didn't you wash, or why don't you do this, or your collar's up, or something. Yeah. Immediately he begins sensing, uh-oh, she's turning into my mother. And it's too much for this man. Why couldn't it have been with the father, too, you see?
And the problem is apparently complicated by the tremendous disappointment that is involved in. For example, if all of us have this French Riviera fantasy with the guy and the violin and the wine, and you're looking into each other's eyes. All right. And everything is wonderful, and you're free, and you're away from all the naysayers, all the people who said no to certain, especially Mom. Don't do this, don't go in the street, don't slide, you know, all these things about baseball.
Sex without strings,
right.
On the Riviera.
All right. Then he suddenly realizes that this is not free of negative influence, that she is reminding him of his mother by beginning with the restrictions. Have I got this?
You've got it right, but it's even more complicated than that. Once the mother is the main parent in a family and not sharing it with a father, then the little boy wants her to be a naysayer. It's not only that she says no, but he wants her to say no. He doesn't want her to like sex.
He wants the girlfriend to say no?
He wants the girlfriend
to say... On the French Riviera?
He wants the girlfriend to say yes and the mother to say no. In other words, he doesn't want his mother to like him so sexually because she's such a strong figure for other things. He would like to differentiate mother from sex, and that's unfortunate.
That's why the fantasy, you see, is so important. These ideas, these images that are so erotic to a man, because the woman in the fantasy always says yes. She says yes when she comes in. When she enters the fantasy, she is so hot already that there's no doubt that she's going to say yes. In fact, she initiates the sex, she seduces him. But remember, these are fantasies. These are fantasies. Time and time again, the men who contributed to Men in Love would say, this is my fantasy. All these hot, hot women who are just saying yes, 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 and more, please. But my wife is this kind of a woman. Now, he chose that other kind of a woman who very often says no. And it's important to understand that while he's erotically aroused by the great yes-sayers of fantasy, if he met her in reality, would he not maybe be threatened? Very often, yes. Very often, yes.
You're saying he would?
He would sometimes run. He would sometimes run. I think that
because this is such a foreign image to him.
Well, I think we may be losing track of the role of fantasy. Fantasy is often the spice of life. It's the thing that adds a little extra to it. It doesn't mean that people expect fantasies to be fulfilled, but they enjoy having them around and they enjoy sharing them. And one of the things about a book like this is that you get a chance to peek into people's fantasies, to see what they're thinking, and to realize this is a world full of a hidden agenda. A second agenda that people are having all the time. It's right there whether they're awake or asleep. And you might as well know about it, and you might as well get to know them better.
There's another problem underneath all this dialogue, though, that has to be, I'd like you to speak to, and that is, we have once again a negative picture of Mother. She is not besieged enough. We're coming back at her again. Now, here's what apparently you and others, other people who care about our behavior and our emotional well-being are saying. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had parents, especially mothers, since in this culture she's spending so much time with the children, who were positive and joyful and talked of life as an adventure rather than a, boy, you better be careful because out there they're gonna get you for everything they got, and don't lend anybody nothing because then they're gonna own you for all this negative stuff. That life is to be experienced. Yes, it has some valleys, and sex is not only beautiful, it's fun. It's actually fun.
But you've got to raise
Now,
women.
hold it. Here's the problem with this. Here's the problem with this. You're asking this of millions and millions of women who are very tired of discharging their responsibilities as parents all by themselves with no help from the old man. And so what we have here really is a besieged, overworked group of women who aren't altogether that fulfilled with this job of wiping noses and cooking.
Right.
So,
you're here.
So what's the point?
Well, I think you're missing part of the point, Phil. Because part of the point is they'd be more fulfilled by the old man if they understood some of his fantasies. If they got closer to him, he might be turned on to them and help them with the other things that are going on. This isn't really against women. It's saying, look, expand, be aware. There's a lot more to know. Don't just stay there in a rut thinking that men are all that they look like on the surface.
Right.
There's a lot more going on underneath the surface.
Okay. We can get back to this in a moment. I just want you to... the book is about men's sexual fantasies.
Right.
And in that sense, then, it is a very erotic book. I mean, there's a, you know, some would say a dirty book. Are you suggesting that, well, what is the purpose of examining this? Is this like a dream? Do men's fantasies tell us something about his subconscious?
They tell us an extraordinary amount. As Dr. Sanger can tell you, a psychoanalyst, when he can get, or she can get, a sexual fantasy out of a patient, he or she, the doctor, has got a tremendous clue to that person's psyche, to that person's sexuality.
Okay.
And I feel that, you see, I feel that if women, especially, because women are the great permission givers in this society, if women can read Men in Love, let us say, and look at some of these erotic ideas, as you say, some of these dirty ideas, and the men themselves feel they're dirty. They're worried that they have such dirty ideas.
Yeah.
But if the women and the men can understand where these ideas come from, what they mean, that they're only in the man's mind, and the women can then say, it's okay, it's all right. Do you realize what that means to a man? Acceptance, sexual acceptance from a woman. That is what men's fantasies are all about. The woman says, it's okay, Harry, it's all right.
What?
I think that's scary.
Why is it scary?
I think I'd be afraid that if my husband found out too much about all these fantasies and wanted me to find out and wanted me to be really accepting, then he'd want me to do all that stuff.
I think she's just made the point.
Or maybe yes.
You know, I mean, in a week she'd be wearing purple nightgown.
That's right.
We are with Nancy Friday, Dr. Sanger. We're talking about Men in Love, which is the book Miss Friday has written. What do you think about this?
Well,
we hope you'll
good.
join us.
From Chicago, you're now in touch with Donahue. Today, Donahue explores the myths about male sexual fantasies and examines the hopes and fears of today's liberated man with author Nancy Friday and psychiatrist Sergei Sanger.
An important announcement in preventive dentistry. For the first time, you can see how plaque, cavity-causing material, builds up on teeth in just one day. To help prevent the cavities this material can cause, a biodental team has designed the Reach toothbrush. Reach is angled like a dental instrument to reach back teeth. Bi-level bristles clean between teeth and gums to help clean away the buildup of dangerous cavity-causing material. Reach from Johnson & Johnson to help prevent cavities.
Walk down any block and you'll find a house where all the kids play and a mom kids depend on to make days fun. Find that house and you'll find Kool-Aid.
Here's a crowd pleaser with thirsty kids. Kool-Aid pre-sweetened. Has vitamin C, costs less than soda, and Kool-Aid has those grapefruit flavors. They're a real favorite.
They sure are. Sauce galore. Thanks, Mom.
Moms depend on Kool-Aid like kids depend on moms. Kool-Aid brand soft drink mix.
Hey, so that's the rinse and vac carpet cleaner.
Yep, and that's the dirt it got out of our rug.
Yuck.
You know, this rinse and vac cleans the way the pros do, and at a fraction of the cost.
Look at that. It rinses and vacuums at the same time. And the rug is clean, even deep down.
And look how dirty it was, deep down.
Yuck.
Daily rinse and vac rentals available at most Lane drugstores.
Woody says Woodville Appliances is having an inventory liquidation sale with fantastic savings, like KitchenAid built-in dishwashers as low as $399. KitchenAid has big, fully usable racks, self-cleaning stainless steel filter and soft waste disposer, safe flow-through drying, sound-absorbing insulation. KitchenAid built-in dishwashers at Woodville as low as $399 during the inventory liquidation sale now through Tuesday at Woodville Appliances, where you always save more.
Talking
about sex, you don't mention love. Isn't love involved in this too? I would think so.
Of course love is involved. First of all, let me say one thing. I think there is something good about talking about sex separate from love, because it is possible to have sex without love, and it's possible to have love without sex. It's heaven to have the two together, I agree. Yes. But they are different, you know, and I think the way women, girls are raised in this culture, we very often confuse the two, and I think it's important to know the difference. But yes, I very much am talking about love in Men in Love. In fact, the book is subtitled The Triumph of Love Over Rage, because I feel, having researched this material for years, that men have a feeling of lifelong rage against women in terms of women always saying no to them, always saying no, beginning, yes, with poor, overworked mother, but then the other little girls who come along. Women attach such strings, such rules. No, John, you can't do that. You're terrible to want to do that. Maybe on the 4th date. Maybe if you do this. Maybe if you promise to love me forever. Yes, darling. Yes, darling. Men buy it. Men go along with it. As I say, it isn't just sex they want. It's love, too. If it was just sex they want, they could buy sex. They want intimacy.
I could briefly say that sex is better with love, and love is better with better sex, so that the two go together very well, and I think that they're hard to take apart.
Is our male society in that much need of sexual fantasies? Don't they have work and families and life in general? That
bowling and other things that they could be.
Exactly, but the way this is presented is that
men are just this animal.
Exactly, 100% fantasies. Where's the real life in this?
Oh, listen, I'm not saying, you know, fantasies aren't like discotheques. I'm not saying let's start a new fad of fantasies. We've always had fantasies. You have them all the time. You can't be really alive in this culture and not have erotic thoughts. We are such an erotically stimulated society. As you walk down the street and see an advertisement for a film, and there's Anne Margaret and Robert Redford's arms, you may still be thinking about your grocery list. You can at the same time be having a 2-second or a 2-minute fantasy about what you just saw. Fantasies are nothing more than the erotic thoughts that float in and out of our minds. Sometimes we build on them and elaborate them when we want to really stimulate ourselves for a longer period of time. But we all have sexual fantasies.
Yeah.
Isn't sex being more important? People talk about sexual commercials, sexual movies, primetime TV because of sex that's shown to children and people who are prudish in regards to sex. They don't want to hear about it. But we see it every day, everywhere we go. But why do we have to fantasize? You live your life.
Well, you don't have to.
Asexual life.
But you don't have to. Nobody's suggesting you have to do anything.
But it's like saying, why do we have to dream? Do you go around saying, why do we have to dream at night? The fact is, you do dream at night, and dreams have a very healthy function in our lives. In our dreams at night, we often dream about murdering people. We often find ourselves in humiliating situations without our clothes on. You don't wake up in the morning and say, what a dreadful night that was. I must be a terrible person. Well, fantasies during the day are also a way of letting off steam, of thinking about things that your mind has been stimulated to think about that you don't really want to do. This young woman up front said, what if my husband reads this book and wants me to do all these things? Well, you make a choice. You do what you want to do, or you don't do these other things.
Yes.
Well, I get the feeling that you're intimating that in order for men and women to have really good relationships, that women have to get into men's fantasies in order for them to be sensitive, loving human beings, because if we don't accept their fantasies, then we're the morons.
They're going to get tired of us.
Really, you know, and I think that's difficult because I think a lot of women haven't accepted their own fantasies, let alone accept some man's fantasy someplace.
That's right. It's a very good point. But I think you've got to do it. Well, we have the divorce rate right now. We have the question of divorces, the question of depressions, alcoholism, all the horrible things that are going on that people who are right next to each other can't help each other with. it would seem to me that although it is difficult to accept one's own fantasies and accept and listen to or even think about, entertain the possibility the person you're living with has a private life or another life that they are thinking about, that they can turn on to, nevertheless, to the extent that you can understand it and can understand your own fantasies, you're a more three-dimensional person. You're more real. They're more real. And you can have a lot more fun talking. Doesn't mean you have to do. I think it's a very important point that we're all trying to make here. Thinking doesn't mean automatically doing.
Yes.
And I think we are asking something very, very generous of women. But that's supposed to be a quality we're supposed to have in abundance, we women. A lot of women are saying now, well, we're supposed to be the generous, warm ones, aren't we, the caretakers? Okay, a lot of feminists right now would say, what do you mean, think about guys? What have guys done for us in the past 15 years? We've helped ourselves. All right, I'm saying, okay, don't think about men. Don't try and understand what's it like to be a man, and good luck to you in your loneliness. But if you care about men, I think this is a way you can try to understand what it's like to be a man in 1980. It isn't easy.
Yes.
Okay, what about the men that repress their sexual fantasies? I mean, does this mean that they're going to start acting them out with rage, or could you comment on that?
Well, I could comment on that. No, it doesn't mean that at all. A lot of men suppress. The whole Catholic upbringing suppresses sexual fantasies. If you think it, you have to confess it.
Well, yeah, let's get the Jews in on this, too, all right?
Portnoy's complaint.
Right, that's right. And so there is something to that, but I don't think that people are in any more danger of acting on fantasies who don't talk about them than who do. The question of self-control comes across the board with people. But it still would mean that the person who doesn't, who suppresses their fantasies, is probably not going to allow themselves to appreciate a lot of things that are going on in the world around them, whether it's music or art or literature or magazines or whatever. They are going to be limited people.
But at what point does it become abnormal? At what point do they start, you know, acting out their rage?
See me after.
Listen,
we have to break here, but tell me again why we're so filled with rage. I don't get that. How come we're mad?
Well, one, because women have attached such rules and conditions to love and to sex all of a man's life. And also he has sacrificed. I think men sacrifice a great deal for women. For instance, you take your son to the airport. A little boy goes to the airport with his parents. What does he see at the airport? He sees a lot of men in dull-looking, excuse me, they're wonderful-looking suits, in these brown suits carrying briefcases. Now, how many little boys have fantasies of growing up to be a man wearing a dark suit carrying a briefcase? No little boy thinks of growing up that way. He wants to grow up and be an astronaut or a Mountie or something exciting. But when adolescence comes, right away, even though he hasn't consciously decided, he has given up being an astronaut, he's given up adventure, he's en route to the briefcase and the dark brown suit, and he's going to do it for a woman. I'm not saying men are walking around in a rage. I am saying much of it is repressed and suppressed. We don't have a world filled with men who are overtly angry at women. Women, I think, tend to think that there is this dark, hostile side to men. I think reading Men in Love will show them that there is an even more strong, loving side to men. And that, I think, is important for women to know right now.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Folks, meet Henry Bate, or Hank, as he's called. He's wearing one of those saggy diapers that leak, and that makes Hank cranky. Well, cheer up, old boy. Here's Huggies. Huggies are form-fitting disposable diapers from Kleenex with soft, gentle elastic, so Huggies hug. So Huggies help stop leaking to help keep baby dry, more comfortable. Thick, absorbent Huggies diapers help keep baby dry, more comfortable. Right, Hank?
Tonight, Arthur, you're going to learn to drink from a glass. Oh, Arthur, that's okay, pal. It's all right. All right, Arthur, no problem. Let's try it again.
Introducing Bolt, a paper towel so strong and absorbent you can wring it out without wearing it out. In tests, it actually stood up to a washing machine. Here's Scott Towels, here's Bounty, and here's Bolt.
You're doing it, Arthur. You're doing it. You're not doing it.
Bolt, the cloth-like paper towel.
All the convalescent aids and equipment you see here can be rented by the month or longer from Sugarman Surgical Supply. Wheelchairs, crutches, walkers, Whirlpool equipment, as well as other convalescent aids. Even this power lift chair, which will help you to a standing position by simply flipping a switch. Whatever your rental problem is, Sugarman's has the solution for you, including complete hospital bed and equipment. Sugarman Surgical Supply is your convalescent aid rental headquarters in northwestern Ohio.
Introducing new bakery-style rolls.
Bakery style, we shall see. Crusty outside. It is tender inside like fresh bread.
That's bakery style.
But you use preservatives, eh?
Oh, no preservatives.
Magnifique. Crusty, tender, it is bakery style.
These bakers agree it's a whole new style from Pillsbury. New bakery-style rolls.
In my humble opinion, it is a breakthrough.
All righty, with all this that's being written every day, you pick up a magazine, you pick up a paper, somebody's got something to say about sex. All righty, I think this is a sick world we're living in. We don't need all that. We don't need all that. And I don't think anybody can tell me how I should do or what. Nobody can tell me that. That has to come from within me and my husband, between the two of us. Nobody can tell me what to do and how to do it or what to do.
That's right. That's privacy. That's privacy.
All righty.
Why is it a sick world?
Well, because there's too much written about it. We grew up in a world that we didn't know all this. I think we're happier because I've been married 34 years, and there's not very many people that can say that today.
Oh, I've been married 15 years. But
oh, well, that's great. That's wonderful.
But listen,
that's marvelous.
The good old days or the bad old days is depending on how you want to look at them. This innocence you speak about was also ignorance in a way. I believe, for one thing...
You think so, huh?
Television, aside from Phil Donahue's show, how many good things are on television? I think the world, by and large, will keep Phil, but let's do away with television, largely speaking.
That's
a big bugaboo.
That's true. Television has really ruined a lot of us.
It isn't the books that are making the world, as you call, sick or uncomfortable for you. What it is the world has changed. You know, we live in a different kind of a world than your mother and your grandmother lived in.
I agree with you.
The books haven't done that. The books, and some of them are good, are trying to help people adjust to this world. And I think if there's one thing a book can do, and I think my books try to do it, is to alleviate the guilt. I think there is such a tremendous amount of guilt out there. And the refrain I hear from women again and again and again is, thank God you wrote that book. I thought I was the only one. And if you can do that, I think that's a plus.
I think that's marvelous, and I'm happy for you. And I hope
I have to agree with Nancy. The world isn't sick. You got to come to grips with yourself. You're okay. All the things you think that you're the only one thinking, you're not. And it doesn't make you rotten, and it doesn't make you bad. It makes you real, and it makes you feel.
Right. That's a very real thought. And
well, I didn't say that, sweetheart. I didn't say that at all. What I said is that everybody comes up with a different article. Haven't you picked up a book, a magazine, the Ladies' Home Journal, They Better...
You do. I read everything I can on it.
Marvelous, and I wish you lots of luck, sweetheart. And when you're my age, I hope that you be married as long as I have, because some of you girls who are maybe 30 years my junior and have been married 3 or 4 times already. So there's a difference.
Do you really think a lot of people have been... People that young have been married that often?
There's a lot of them that have maybe 2 or 3 children from different marriages.
There's another point that has to be made. People have stood up on this show before, and we are happy for you when it is clear that you're doing a lot of things right, and maybe you ought to write a book. So please understand my point. There are folks who stand up in this show and they say, I've been married 38 years, with the same kind of tone that a man would stand up and say, I went through the Great Depression, 2 wars, 3 auto accidents, and I'm still alive, damn it. And I'm tired of all these people out there.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. And I don't think my husband's had an easy road to toe.
Yeah.
I know he hasn't, but I haven't either. No. But we stuck it out, right?
Okay, let's hear more about it.
Isn't that the main thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, but the point here is, the point we're asking, and we're not demanding that you agree with any guest on the show. The point is, can life be better? Can it?
Yes,
yes, this is what we agree
can.
to.
If we all learn to give a little bit, but we expect too much out of our husbands or too much out of our wives, too much out of our children. True. I know that if I had to do it over again, I'd raise my children entirely different.
Would you?
Yes, I would.
Now, why would you do that? I mean, you haven't been reading books, have you?
No, I haven't. But there's a lot of things that I would have done differently, Phil. I really mean that. You know that. I mean, that's right. I mean,
anybody with a big family raised the first one a lot different than the last one, you know?
That's right. I don't have such a big family.
But that's just the point that this woman is mentioning, I think, is very important. Had she had greater access to her husband's fantasies and her own fantasies, she might have had some cues and clues early on to change her child rearing a little bit. Also, we're coming at the end of a long era of repression. We're still, up until the 50s anyway, in the hangover of the 19th century. We're all now beginning to give ourselves permission. Talk about being hard on the husband and the husband being difficult with the wife. What about what we do to ourselves? And that's very important, that we accept ourselves, that whatever comes out of our mind is not dirty, ugly, horrible, as long as we don't put it into behavior. We sift it, we think about it. It's called civilization. But we let ourselves think. And to think is not really a bad thing. In fact, unfortunately, thinking in most other countries is very dangerous. One can't afford to think, because if you think very frightening things politically. And thinking is supposedly one of the most important things that we can do as people. How to reconcile that? Thinking and not doing. That's a very big challenge to us. And what to do, what thoughts to communicate to your husbands, and have your husbands communicate to you, your boyfriends communicate to you, and what thoughts to ask them, please, I just don't want to know about that yet. I'd like to hold off.
That's terribly important to understand in this whole business of fantasies, which is, should you or should you not tell your mate about your sexual fantasies? I happen to think it's a very important point, and if love means anything between a couple, it means having some responsibility for the other person's feelings and happiness. Would your mate like to hear that your fantasies involve somebody that isn't he? No. Very often, most often, fantasies are not about your mate. And that's, that's a very important point. You can say to somebody, listen, if you really love me, then you'll like my fantasy. That's not love, that's blackmail.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But let's make the point clear. So it's not always a good idea to verbalize your fantasy.
No, on the contrary. In fact, I'd be very subtle about it. I'd be as coy as saying, gee, George, I was reading this book, or I have this friend who has the most interesting fantasy. It goes sort of like this. They ask the neighbors in, etc., and if your mate goes, they do what? I would not proceed. But you can be very subtle and find out if these ideas excite him or her. Yeah. And go slowly, because you care about these person's feelings, and they're going to have to live with your fantasy for the rest of his or her life.
We're a little late, folks. Nancy Friday's book is titled Men in Love, and we'll be back in just a moment.
At last, an incredible household cleaner that's also a powerful laundry pre-spotter. Super strength less toil. To prove its strength, we put less toil and this work shirt to work, cleaning a greasy stovetop, tough bathroom dirt, even this greasy car engine. Then we put less toil to work on that same work shirt. The result, less toil cleaned the shirt that cleaned the house. Less toil, around the house and in the laundry.
Cuddle up to Stay Puft softness, lovey mine. Cuddle up to Stay Puft freshness, feel so fine. I like to make you Stay Puft cozy, lovey mine.
Stay Puft, the concentrated fabric softener.
At Kroger, your cost-cutter store, you can get low warehouse prices, like 58 cents every day, $1.97 every day, 17 cents every day. But that's not all. It's warehouse prices in a complete food store, with 200 kinds and cuts of meat, 150 varieties and sizes of fruits and vegetables, delicious oven-fresh baked goods, deli treats, and so much more. Get warehouse prices in a complete one-stop food store. Cut your costs at Kroger.
I'd like a tenderloin steak, please, and make it tender.
No problem. One tender on the hoof.
Eating steak in some restaurants is getting tougher all the time. Because some restaurants worry too much about cutting costs and not enough about cutting steaks. At Mr. Steak, we serve only the finest USDA choice beef. And now you can get our steak and lobster at a special price you can't resist.
Enjoy a steak and lobster dinner for $7.95 at participating Mr. Steak restaurants. More on men in love and their sexual fantasies with Nancy Friday and Dr. Sergei Sanger when Donahue returns following these messages.
If you have a legal problem, why choose Hyatt Legal Clinics?
Well, we're the largest legal clinic in the state. We have offices throughout northern Ohio. We have only experienced attorneys who specialize in cases such as divorce, bankruptcy, personal injury, and probate. And we offer professional services at very reasonable fees. Hyatt Legal Clinics. There's no reason to go anywhere else.
Hyatt Legal Clinics. Call 385-6000. 385-6000.
To keep? Yep. I got one just like them.
Look for your other girlfriends?
No way.
Share the fun of pictures.
Look at that giant bird.
That's me.
My favorite.
Get double takes at Lane Drug.
You want two favorites?
2 sets of prints from every roll of standard color film we develop.
I can't wait to show these.
To your other boyfriends?
No way.
Double takes at Lane's. 2 sets of prints, 1 low discount price.
WTVG Toledo.
Sergei Sanger, MD, a psychiatrist. Any relation to Margaret?
No.
Nancy Friday is also here, the author of Men in Love. Are you there? Is the caller there?
Yes.
Hi.
I was just kind of shocked by the lady in the front row who said that by listening to her husband's fantasies, he might want her to do all those dirty things. Well, who should he do them with if he doesn't do them with her?
Oh.
No. We know what you mean.
Okay, run.
I didn't say dirty, first of all. I really didn't. I really agree a lot with Nancy that we bring up our little boys and not with the love that they really need. Mother and father both should share that role. I really agree with that. And I also agree with the fact that wives do have the no power, more so than they probably should in most marriages. The nay power. Yeah. And I can see this causing frustration in husbands and rage and so on. Yeah. My only question was, if a husband reads a book like Men in Love, and I've just paged through it, I saw some very graphic examples of fantasies. I'm just saying, is that swinging the pendulum way over to the other side? Doesn't it come to a point where you're too far into the fantasies, into something that probably your husband doesn't even want to delve that deeply into? And can't that take away from the real love and start going into a different type of world that is non-reality and not even a point where you can share? That's all I'm saying.
I'm reminded of the statement, you can't be too thin, too rich, or too excited, or too beautiful.
Who was it said, I think it was Sophie Tucker said, too much of a good thing is wonderful.
Wonderful, that's right. I think that's true. And I don't see any great danger in that, because one of the things that men want from their wives, as opposed to from their mothers, they want someone that's fun to be with, someone who's a playmate, someone who's fun to, a life mate, someone to do exciting things to keep the marriage from getting stale. It doesn't mean that even if one tries something with one's husband, that it necessarily will work, but both of you can agree it isn't working.
But I think there's a misunderstanding that we better correct here. Nancy Friday is not saying, here are the fantasies, now go to it. No, Nancy Friday is saying, these are the fantasies. What, and if dreams were productive in terms of giving information to Sigmund Freud, what can sexual fantasies tell us about the conflict, the desires, the guilt, the anxiety, the fun, the love that men have for women?
You see how many times we've said it on the show already, that there is a difference between fantasy and reality. Having this fantasy doesn't mean you really want to do it. One of the largest chapters in Men in Love is a chapter called Sadomasochism. In fact, it is the largest chapter. This chapter, particularly, the men say, I do not want to experience pain. I don't know why I get erotically aroused by these things, but I wouldn't want to do this. In women's fantasies, women's most prevalent fantasy was being overpowered. Sometimes they even used the word raped. They were not then raped. They weren't hurt. They weren't humiliated. The women were just setting up in front the idea in the fantasy. This man comes to my door, he overpowers me, he makes me do it, and we do the 20 following things. She's letting it be known, I'm a good girl, I'm a nice girl, it wasn't my idea. Now, men, on the other hand, are just as explicit, very, very often, more often than not, about saying, I wouldn't really want to do this in reality, but I am excited by it. Why? You might read this book and say, these are dirty, dirty thoughts. And I'm afraid most of the men in the book would agree with you and feel ashamed by it. And that is why they defend against it. What I am saying is if we understand it, if we can understand it and understand that this word dirty is something we apply to it, that there is a reason for it, that we can relieve men of some of the guilt they feel about their bodies, about their sexuality, and relieve them of some of the anger they feel at us for making them feel like animals. You know, women, we don't realize it sometimes. Men think we don't enjoy sex. That's why those magazines on the newsstand of women masturbating are so exciting to men. Do you know why? You may not like those magazines, but they sell like crazy. Do you know why a man likes a picture of a woman masturbating? Because there it is in black and white, and usually color, saying, this woman likes sex so much she'll even have it by herself. That is very exciting to a man, because he doesn't believe we really enjoy it.
Yet he will verbalize interest in a virgin wife.
Oh, that's
bride.
the split. That's men's split. You see, they have a split just as we do. Men, it is not easy, but it's important to understand it.
You know, it's like we went out of our way to goof this up. You know that?
It's really goofy.
But we're coming out of it. We're coming out of it. That's the good news. That's why there is so much talk about sex today. Young people today talk about sex in an open, accepting way that we didn't when we were growing up. That's positive and good.
Okay, I would like to say, don't you think our culture should just teach the men a little bit more about women's fantasies, too?
Right, absolutely right. This should start early in all levels, not only family, and this is where the mothers shouldn't feel burdened by all of the talk that we give. It's not only their responsibility. I think everyone shares the responsibility and also the pleasure in doing it. I think it's great fun to talk to children imaginatively about what they're thinking and what they'd like to do, both positively and negatively towards little boys and little girls. And you hear a lot. And you must read it, as I think, Phil, when you brought up about Freud's dream material, that when you get a fantasy, you can read it the way you would read a dream. You don't take it just on its surface. You also take, what are the themes in the fantasy? What is the fantasy really saying? Is the man perhaps only saying, I'm thinking my worst thought, will you just still love me if I think silly, awful, ridiculous thoughts? He may not mean anything more than that, but it may mean a great deal if he's turned off.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Come to Banner Mattresses' grand reopening at both locations. We have redisplayed and enlarged both showrooms. You've always expected Banner to be the leader in better bedroom suits and factory direct mattresses. Now we're the leader in obviously better quality living room furniture. For example, look at this luxurious long-wearing 100% Antron nylon three-piece sofa, love seat, and chair set. Regularly $999, now just $666. Hundreds of other groups at grand reopening prices. Hurry to Banner, first come, first serve. Shop both locations, open 7 days a week.
I just don't know what band to hire for my wedding reception. Who played at yours?
Well, I had Glenn Miller and Barbara Streisand, Chuck Mangione, the Jacksons, Bob Seger. I had everybody at my wedding reception.
How could you afford that?
I had Mr. Entertainer.
If you need music for a wedding reception, a class reunion, a dance, or just a private party, Mr. Entertainer is exactly what you've been looking for. Mr. Entertainer is a mobile music system providing the finest recorded music available and tailored to suit your needs. Mr. Entertainer, call me today.
Hey, it's a Papagallo Spring. Pretty bright-colored Papagallo espadrilles, sandals, and casual shoes, Sebago Docksiders, Cole Haan loafers, and Olaf clogs. Plus plenty of perfectly Papagallo shirts, tops, and dresses by Lons, Gordon, Point of View, and many, many more. Classic clothing that will take you right through the spring and summer. Papagallo has it all. That's the shop for Papagallo at Cricket West Shopping Center, West Central Avenue, 1 block east of Secor, where it's spring by Papagallo.
Toledo, the glass capital, some great industry, some fine restaurants. One of the best is the Porch of the Maidens. Excellent food, outstanding service. And today, when everyone is raising in prices, we're holding them down. And now, the Porch is introducing a brand new concept called Early Fare. Visit the Porch anytime between 4 and 6:30 p.m. and take advantage of the Early Fare menu with its smaller portions and smaller prices. Visit the Porch on the Central Avenue Strip.
The caller there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm just sitting here thinking that there y'all go again, blaming all of men's problems or rage because women, and not because of their own inability to face up to their problems. It seems that you're talking about the little boy not fantasizing about carrying a brown, or wearing a brown suit and carrying a briefcase. How many women fantasize about folding diapers and wiping runny noses?
That's right.
Well, women do fantasize about growing up and being mothers, though. And that is a fantasy they have all of their lives, that they will get married and grow up and become mommies. Little boys, I don't think, have the fantasy of becoming good providers. And that is how we define masculinity in this culture, a good provider. How would you like to have your gender identity defined by how much bread you bring home?
Most of these men carry these briefcases for their own egos. They're out there in their own power trips.
That's right. That's
Oh,
right.
certainly in time it's true. It becomes that way.
Yeah, you know, there's somewhere there's a guy who for 25 years has brought that briefcase home and never opened it.
And you know what's inside.
Yeah. I want to make sure we understand your point. This looks like another one of those, let's put the rap on mom.
No, that's exactly wrong. I think that
well, let her make her point. Do we have you right?
Well, it seems like the women are always asked to make the changes in a relationship. They're being dumped on again, that if they want to understand the man, they are the ones that are going to have to take the steps to do it. It's not that the men have to try to understand themselves and change themselves a little.
Look, men have simply not been racing forward to have consciousness-raising groups the way women did 15 years ago. Men are not raised in this culture to group together with other men and share their most intimate feelings. Gee, Harry, I have this terrible guilt and anxiety about sex. They simply don't do it. We women want them to. What I said earlier is true. A great deal of generosity is being asked by women right now. Don't do it if you don't want to, but then don't sit around and say, where are the men?
Well, the men are trying all the time. They're sending signals out all over the place. I don't think there's a single man that hasn't signaled to his girlfriend or his wife that he has a secret life, he has other thoughts, and so on. It's just that the future belongs to those who are prepared for it. And if you are prepared in your own minds to listen to some of these signals, you'll hear them. The men are taking responsibility. I don't think they're all closed up and not saying a word at all. I think they're trying very hard to get across.
Hang on just a second.
Well, my question is, if we, as mothers and fathers, jointly raise our children, sons and daughters, then how are our sons' fantasies going to change when they're older? Are they going to be less masochistic or sadistic or...
Yes, I think so, because everything in a man's life when he was a child will not be focused on one person, a woman. She will not be all the love in the world, and she will not be the naysayer, the no-sayer in those important years in his life. It will be a man and a woman. It's that tremendous focus that children have on that one parent, the woman. She gets all the love, but she gets all the rage, too.
Yes.
Okay, I want to know, now personally, I believe that a woman's fantasies are more bizarre than males. And I want to know, are you going, because if I was to, you know, I couldn't even say the fantasies that I have.
I'm glad you're not going
I know what you mean.
But your point is what?
I mean, but who, are you intending on writing a book on female?
Oh, I did. I wrote a book called My Secret Garden. It was my first time on Phil's show 7 years ago. Women's fantasies are extraordinarily bizarre and wonderful and rich. Men's are different.
But
it's
the word
interesting
bizarre,
to compare the two.
the word bizarre is judgmental, though. I mean, it suggests a bad thing.
Is
that what we want to say about that?
No, they're very rich and they're very
bizarre?
intricate.
They're different. They aren't necessarily things that the women want to do in real life. You know, the imagination is a wonderful, fertile organ. In fact, the mind, the brain, has been called the most erotic, powerful organ of all.
Yes. You said in the beginning that we should raise little boys like little girls. Well, what do you think of little boys that want to try on little girls' clothes all the time? Do you think this is a sexual fantasy for them, or...?
I said one should give little boys as much love and not be any more shy with little boys than one would be with little girls about showing how much they're loved and not be scared by the various sexual overtones. But as far as the boys trying things on, again, he may be playing with something that's just a play any more than putting on a baseball hat or running around as a fireman. And these are important things for him not to feel that there's any one thing you don't like, because with a child, the minute you tell them there's something you can't stand, that fixes it. And then even if they don't do it, they remember it bothered you, and in a few years, they'll have a whole repertoire of things that roast you. So you know not to do it.
Don't you think that little boys sometimes tend to push the mother off before she is, like, she still wants to hug him and hold him and everything, and the little boy from his friends and everything just feels like, Mommy, don't do that anymore. I'm bigger now. That's
right. That was one of the points we made earlier, that he would like to separate the mother, who is the boss lady, who is the instructor, the habit giver, from the mother that he loves. He may still let that mother kiss him in private and from time to time, but he doesn't want to be kissed and hugged in front of his friends. He's moving on, he's separating, he's with a different, and he doesn't want to be treated like a little kid.
But I think it's more complicated than that, isn't it? I mean,
Yes, but we
wouldn't
don't
it be
have the time.
healthier if little boys weren't so self-conscious about that?
Oh, of course it would be. You know, I wrote my mother myself was all about women's problems on separating from their mothers. Well, boys have just as difficult problems separating from this woman who is all the love in the world they know. But they know that by the time they're 2 years old, that they have to grow up to be like daddy. It's already become a tremendous chore in their minds. Can I make it without this all-powerful, loving mommy?
Is that the fault of the mother or society, or how would you suggest?
There's also part of the fault of biology. We mustn't forget that men and women are different, basically very different. And a man can't fake his excitement, whereas a woman can. So it's very important that a man remember fantasies that turn him on, lest he not be impotent. A woman can still not think fantasies and still be so-called potent, and no one will ever know. This is a very important biological difference, besides the species difference.
I disagree with you. My son is much more loving to me. He demands the love. In public, no matter where we're at, he is much more loving than my daughter. He's 4. It never bothers him anywhere. And he tries to act tough, but he's a real tender.
That's very sweet.
So in other words, enjoy this.
Enjoy it. Don't turn it off.
I don't think you can spoil children myself.
You keep going back to wives discussing fantasies with husbands. Don't divorced men fantasize and single men?
Oh, of course they do.
Probably more so.
Absolutely. But the fact is, a lot of people think married men don't fantasize because they have sex so available. What we're trying to say is it has nothing to do with the availability of sex. Sex fantasies aren't filling in for something that's missing in your life necessarily. We simply have them because we're lively, sexual people, I hope.
I was thinking about the young children who are talking about love and bringing them up, and I'm in the 2nd generation now, and I think about my grandchildren and how the little girls and the little boys, the 2 girls were older, and when they were all together, they'd come in the afternoon all dressed up, and the little boys would have on the high-heeled shoes and be dressed up just like, and they'd come out and have a show. That was great. Yeah. Now they're 14 and 12 and like that. The little boys are the ones that come to me running at 10 and 11, show their love. Yes. The girls are more restrained, and I think they all grow to what they're going to be, and they see love, and you don't worry about, oh, they're showing too much toward the girls or too much toward the boys. I think it's a natural thing, and they come out.
Yes, that's a beautiful story, and we're grateful for your telling it to us, because you've obviously got healthy grandchildren. But we do have, I'm afraid, too many homes in which the parental love is not demonstrated.
So true.
And that's one of the things maybe that we'll have.
Show the love.
Yes. We'll be back in just a moment.
While they last, get a $25 instant saving on selected Maytag Jet Clean dishwashers, the one that outcleans them all in the regular cycle. Save $25 on this convertible. Save $25 on this built-in. Buy either Maytag Jet Clean dishwasher now and get a $25 instant saving off our regular price.
Save $25 off the regular price on selected models Maytag washer dryers at Appliance Center in Toledo.
Folks, meet Henry Bate, or Hank, as he's called. He's wearing one of those saggy diapers that leak, and that makes Hank cranky. Well, cheer up, old boy. Here's Huggies. Huggies are form-fitting disposable diapers from Kleenex with soft, gentle elastic, so Huggies hug. So Huggies help stop leaking to help keep baby dry, more comfortable. Thick, absorbent Huggies diapers help keep baby dry, more comfortable. Right, Hank?
I better get to know you within a minute. Never get to know you except in my dreams. Never get to know you for more than a day, but to see. And we could take a trip like Allison. Please, it's all for me. Come on.
Don't miss Paul Anka in concert April 29th and 30th at the Masonic Auditorium.
If it's modern, it's from Timmons.
If you would like a written transcript of today's program, send $2.50 in check or money order to Donahue Transcripts, Box 2111, Cincinnati, Ohio 45201. Include the subject or the name of the guest with your request.
Men in Love is Nancy Friday's book. It's an account of her interviews with 3,000 men. You selected a couple of hundred and shared with the reader their fantasies, which had what common feature? Men's sexual fantasies.
I would say the basic line, the basic denominator in men's sexual fantasies is acceptance from women. The okay, the
need to be accepted, is that it?
It's the tremendous need men feel to be accepted sexually by women. One of the most important themes in men's fantasies is oral sex. I'm going to say it here, you can say it on Phil Donahue's show and not many others, but I tell you, if you love somebody, there is nothing like oral sex, especially to men, to show acceptance and love, to accept all of a person. It's one of the great themes of men's fantasies. But in these fantasies, the man initiates sex, the woman initiates sex, she seduces him. She is, by all of her actions, saying, it's all right, it's okay.
And I have a feeling I'm going to wish this show was 5 minutes shorter. We thank you. Thanks very much to Nancy Friday, Dr. Sanger. Thank you for joining us. We're glad you were here and hope you have a nice day. Goodbye, everybody.
He has long been the champion of the American taxpayer, and his Golden Fleece Awards have won him special acclaim in Congress and throughout America. And on our next show, we'll meet Senator William Proxmire. Join us.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following. Introducing the new Thunderbird with exciting options for the 80s, including the first keyless entry system and a dazzling electronic dash. Thunderbird.
True Value hardware stores where quality, selection, and service are why they're #1. True Value is more than just a name, it's their way of doing business.